The classroom was nearly deserted, sunlight filtering through the windows in hazy golden beams, catching motes of dust drifting lazily in the air. I was sorting through a stack of essays when a quiet knock broke the stillness. Jake stepped inside, hesitating in the doorway like he was second-guessing himself. He'd always been more mature than most students his age. Calm, thoughtful, always lingering after lessons with questions that showed real curiosity. But today something was different. His eyes held a weight I hadn't seen before. He asked if we could talk, something personal, he said. I assumed it was about a grade or maybe something going on at home. He took a seat across from me, lowering his voice as if afraid the walls might listen. I think I'm in love with someone, he confessed. I smiled gently, thinking it was just the typical crush students occasionally developed. But then came the words I wasn't expecting. It's you. Time seemed to stop. My mind raced, a flood of thoughts crashing into each other but not one taking shape clearly enough to speak. He rose from his seat and walked toward me, not forcing anything, just stepping closer. I know it's wrong, he murmured. But I see how you look at me. I wanted to deny it, tell him he was reading too much into things, that he was imagining it. But I couldn't because he wasn't wrong. I turned away and walked to the window, searching my reflection for reason, for a reminder of who I was. I was his teacher. I was married. This was reckless, unthinkable. And yet, deep in my chest, something stirred, something I hadn't felt in years. He didn't come closer, didn't plead, just said softly, "You deserve to be seen." Then he walked away, like he knew he'd already said enough. That night, I lay in bed next to a man who hadn't touched me in what felt like forever. Eric was asleep in the other room, snoring softly. The man I once loved now felt like a distant stranger. Jake's words echoed louder than the silence that had settled over my marriage. In the days that followed, Jake kept his distance. He avoided my eyes, passed by me with a cool indifference. And I shouldn't have cared. But I did. I missed the quiet attention, the subtle charge between us, the way he made me feel seen without saying a word. Then Thursday came. He waited after class again, silent. No conversation this time. Just a folded piece of paper he placed on my desk before slipping out the door. It was a poem, raw and vulnerable, filled with longing and restraint. Every word clearly about me. I read it once, then again. Third time, my hands trembling. I didn't throw it away. Couldn't. I hid it deep in my drawer, kneading it close like a secret I didn't want to lose. That weekend, Eric went off on a cabin trip with his brothers. The house was too quiet, too hollow. My willpower began to fracture. "Message Jake." He responded right away. He showed up at my doorstep like he belonged there. I was in sweatpants and a tank top. Nothing meant to entice. I told myself this wasn't about seduction. But the moment I opened the door and saw the way he looked at me, I knew. No long conversations. Just a kiss. Soft, hesitant, full of need. I let it happen. We moved to the couch, heat pulsing between us with every breath. His lips were hungry but reverent. His touch was familiar, as if he'd imagined this 1,000 times. I wasn't shaking from nerves. I was trembling because I felt wanted again. Desired. He awakened something in me I thought was long gone. Later we lay in silence, his head resting against my chest, skin warm against mine. "I don't regret this," he whispered. And neither did I. From that night on, everything shifted. I started putting effort into my appearance again, fixing my hair, spritzing perfume before school. My coworkers noticed. So did Eric, though he never said a word. At school, Jake and I remained distant. But outside those walls, we burned quietly. We met in parked cars, empty rooms, quiet corners of the city. He was close to graduating. I kept telling myself this would end, that it had to. But every time we were together, it didn't feel like an ending. Felt like something just beginning. I knew the risks. I knew what people would say. I knew what I stood to lose. But for the first time in years, I felt more than just present. I felt alive. Jake made me laugh again. made me feel like I was more than a role, more than a wife, more than a teacher. He reminded me I was still human, still capable of desire, still deserving of love. I tried to imagine stepping away, tried to picture walking back into my quiet life untouched. But I couldn't. Not yet. Sometimes I caught glimpses of myself in mirrors and hardly recognized the woman staring back. It wasn't shame I saw. It was wonder. Wonder at the fact that I could still feel so deeply. One night in a dim motel room as we lay side by side, he traced his fingers along my shoulder and whispered, "You deserve more." And I believed him. But even in that belief I understood, this couldn't last. He would graduate, start a new life, and I'd be left in the same one. Older, married, tethered to a life built on predictability and quiet discontent. But Jake gave me something I hadn't realized I was starving for. He saw me. And even after it ended, as it inevitably did, I was no longer the same. The woman I had been was gone. They say affairs are about filling something that's missing. But sometimes, they're about discovering something you didn't know you still had. For a fleeting moment, in a life shaped by rules and routines, I tasted freedom. And I'll never forget what it felt like, to finally be seen,